Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati, the man who rules the world, takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. There are some people speculating that executives in big tech are getting nervous over who Donald Trump picked to become the new chair of the Federal Communications Commission. Now, President-elect Donald Trump has decided to hire Brendan Carr to become the new chair of the FCC, and his plans for the FCC have a lot of these big tech companies basically getting nervous because his plan is to go out and look to dismantle what he calls the censorship cartel. Now, according to Brendan Carr, there seems to be a censorship cartel that goes out and looks to basically collude to try to censor information online, and there has been possible evidence of this being presented during the pandemic, where companies like Google basically modified their search results and also created policies that ran to look to go out and flag and delete content that looked to be critical of the COVID-19 vaccine, and looked to go out and look to censor content creators that went out here and produced content presenting speculative conspiracy theories. And this censorship further went on platforms like Twitter, which was now known as X when it was run by Jack Dorsey, where they openly went out and censored a lot of content creators who were out here posting tweets that ran counter to the COVID-19 vaccine, and further looked to censor those who presented conservative viewpoints. And according to Brendan Carr, what he wants to do is dismantle what he believes to be this censorship cartel and look to restore the free speech rights of everyday Americans on social media platforms like X, formerly known as Twitter, platforms like Meta, which run Facebook and Instagram, and Google, which runs the YouTube social media platform, and other social media platforms, and end this whole, what he believes, collusion by these business owners to keep people from seeing certain viewpoints and certain ideas, and open up these platforms to be town squares like he believes Elon Musk has made X, which is now formerly known as Twitter. Now, I believe that the whole idea of restoring the free speech rights of everyday Americans is a good thing on social media, because I have been seeing this censorship go on as far back as about 2010. Now, back in 2010, I came on to YouTube, and as I came on to YouTube, I heard many black men finally get a chance to express their side of the story. And as black men were out here looking to express their side of the story for the first time, this is where we saw black women go out here and look to censor our voices for speaking on our side of the story. And as I saw many black men speaking out, what they had to deal with on YouTube was a lot of censorship, and I saw many good brothers as they were shattering the narrative that had been presented on mainstream media for 30 years of black men being deadbeats, black men being incompetent, black men not being able to take care of their families. Basically, going out here, you had working class brothers who were living, breathing refutations of many of the narratives that women like Oprah Winfrey and women like Ricky Lake put on their talk shows. We had many black men come to YouTube, such as Dan Freeman, such as Heavenly Truth One, Rick Scorpio, Ringo, and even Tommy Sotomayor, and many of the original black male YouTubers. These men basically laid the groundwork for shattering the narrative that many black people thought was the norm as related to this deadbeat black man that had been presented for over 30 years. And as these black men began to start to speak out, there were campaigns to basically take down their channels and have their channels censored because these black women did not want these black men to come out and present their talking points as related to being a counterpoint to the narratives that were presented in the mainstream media. Now, these false flagging campaigns led to many black men who first started out speaking out, getting their channels flagged with false flagging campaigns, and these false flagging campaigns were the first wave of censorship on social media, and they were the first effort to take away people's free speech rights on the social media platforms. These were the first plan to take away black men's free speech rights, and what many black women and many beta males would do is go out here and false flag these black channels as hate speech, and as they would false flag these channels because they were saying things people didn't want to hear, they would use the hate speech argument as a way to, again, have these channels taken down and have these channels deleted. And these campaigns were basically done because people didn't want to hear black men and didn't want to hear the black man's side of the story. And they didn't want to hear the black man's side of the story because it was, one, going out here and refuting the victim narrative that many black women were presenting in the media, and refuting the narrative that many leftists created for black women as related to them being victims of deadbeat black men. And two, it was black men finally having an opportunity to present their voices and present their voices on a platform. And this was done to, again, take away a black man's rights to free speech, and was done under the guise of saying, hey, this black man is on a private platform, and as he was on the private platform, he had to follow what they created was the community guidelines, because when YouTube first started out, there was no community guidelines at all. However, as black women complained, they used this as a reason to create these community guidelines, and as they created these community guidelines, basically YouTube has been making up the rules as they go along, and making up the rules as they go along to censor any black person who presents counterpoints that people that at YouTube and even people don't like. And they've been using this to go after black channels, and been going after black channels from 2009 to about 2012. And around 2012, this is where black men formed a class action lawsuit, and that class action lawsuit made a lot of these flaggers back off and made YouTube back off for a minute. However, as the 2010s went on, this is where we started to see another ratcheting up of censorship campaigns, first by places like the Wall Street Journal, which created the adpocalypse, and then another censorship campaign as the Me Too movement was going on. As the Me Too movement was going on, and feminists were out here presenting their allegations against men, we saw campaigns to look to silence the voices of men on these platforms, and look to silence the voices of men as related to ideas like men going their own way, because many women didn't like that men were making counterpoints to challenge the Me Too movement. And this was done on platforms like YouTube, where people who were talking on these talking points were basically, again, censored passive aggressively by demonetization, passive aggressively by flagging campaigns, and looks to attempt put strikes on people's channels as related to YouTube's arbitrary policies. And this was further escalated as the COVID-19 pandemic went on, because as the COVID-19 pandemic went on and the government basically wanted to go out and look to get all compliance on vaccination, there was information that Mark Zuckerberg presented that there was a campaign to, again, look to silence voices on the internet as related to anybody running counter to that campaign. And that's the kind of censorship that has been going on with big tech. And again, this big tech censorship is something that now it looks like President-elect Donald Trump wants to do something about as related to dismantling the censorship cartel, because that same censorship cartel looked to silence the voice of the former president on Twitter when Jack Dorsey was running it, and also looked to silence the voices of anyone who ran counter to any sort of left-leaning platform. That's what they're speculating as related to the collusion that went on with big tech companies like Twitter at the time, and companies like Google, which runs YouTube, and also went out here and misdirected people with searches, and also with the companies like Meta, known as Facebook. Again, this type of censorship is something that the new head of the FCC wants to deal with, and wants to deal with as related to what he believes is restoring people's free speech rights on these platforms, and I'm making an internet where people can go out here and be able to be free to express themselves the way people used to do before, I would say, about 2009. Now, as someone who remembers the old internet from about 2000 to 2009, I remember a internet where people did have the opportunity to participate in free speech on these platforms, and people had that right to go and do that before these big tech corporations came in and started looking to try to control the narrative on these platforms. Now, the reason why these people want to control the narrative on these platforms is because they're hearing a lot of speech that they don't like. And as they hear speech from people that they don't like, what they're hearing are narratives that basically are coming out, like those that are coming out in the black community, looking to shatter many of the narratives that were presented in the mainstream media, like those presented on gynocentric media, like the Oprah Winfrey Show, which demonized black men for over 30 years. And as they hear these counterpoints being presented, we're getting a clearer picture of things as related to the country. And as we're getting a clearer picture of things, what people want to do is try to get people to see their view of the world so that they can sell the reality that they want to create. And what further has people, again, looking to escalate these censorship campaigns is that they're seeing that not only is this having an influence on the minds of people as they get information on this information superhighway, what they're getting is information that, again, shatters the official narrative. And as they're getting this information that not only shatters the official narrative, it's not only having influence on the people's perception of things, it's also changing the way we do politics in this country. And that's the thing that has a lot of these people who run these companies extremely upset. What has them extremely upset is that as people are expressing their free speech, it's basically changing the way that they go out here and vote in this country, because as we've gotten new voices coming up, we've started to see people's whole frame of thinking completely change as related to things like the Blue Party. And that's one of the core reasons why many of these companies participated in this, what the FCC new chair Brendan Carr is saying, the censorship campaign. And this is something that I have seen go on over the last, I say, about 9 to 10 years, when I watched YouTubers like David Carroll come to the YouTube platform and start speaking against the Blue Party. As he started speaking against the Blue Party, and other voices started speaking out against the Blue Party, taking the black vote for granted, I started to see guys like Jason Black and Professor Black Truth starting to have an impact along with David Carroll in changing people's perceptions, and this changed the direction of the black vote. And as these black voices started to come out on new black media, it basically led to new black media starting to become the official voice, and us no longer listening to hand-picked shills like Oprah Winfrey and people like Alice Walker, who are basically pushing a misandristic and anti-black agenda, to people getting a clearer picture of black life, and people getting a clearer picture of black life from people like myself and many others out here who were voices that were silenced. And as those voices started speaking out, it completely changed the entire world all around us. And this is why I can say that this is basically an indirect result. I'm hoping if this guy, Brendan Carr, comes to power, that he dismantles this censorship cartel, because this is one of the good things that will happen for new black media, because new black media already now has most of the influence over the black community at this point. We can see this with the 2024 election, and we can only see more growth come as a result of this dismantling of this censorship cartel, which basically started with the black sector of YouTube, because what they wanted to do was ultimately get control over the black sector of YouTube. And again, that was the canary in the coal mine, because what they wanted to do was control the black narrative and look to control it with their hand-picked shills. However, if we get more of this censorship cartel dismantled, that means we're going to get more power and control over the black community as related to controlling the narrative. So this is something that will be indirectly good for new black media. It will be very good for new black media, because what's going to happen is that we no longer are going to have to fear false flagging campaigns that I believe take down many of the more powerful voices of new black media, like Your World, also known as Mr. Superboy, and guys like Mad Black 80, who have basically been presenting black empowerment narratives. These guys can go out here and now further expand their voice without fear of being false flagged or having their channels taken down for many of the arbitrary reasons that YouTube has gone out here and censored people. And it basically takes a load off of a lot of content creators like myself, who basically live with anxiety, fearing that if we put any sort of content out, that it can lead to it getting flagged for just the most arbitrary and trivial reasons, or us having our channels taken down, as related to what Mr. Superboy Your World talks about, as related to these periodical purges that happen basically every year, as many of these people in the Zero Subscribers Club or these trolls come out. And that's something that I believe as related to hoping to get this whole censorship cartel taken down, because this basically has impacted black content creators disproportionately. I mean, I've heard of so many black content creators having their channels taken down. And what I'm hoping that happens with this new head of the FCC is that we start to see a internet where all of this censorship basically stops, and we start to see the platforms like YouTube and places like Facebook and Instagram start to resemble platforms like Rumble and Odyssey, where basically content creators put up their content as related to free speech, and if you don't like the content, you basically just don't watch the content. And that's what happened as related to the platform of Rumble, when Russell Brand was basically kicked off of YouTube and this cartel tried to come after Russell Brand. What happened was that the CEO of Rumble basically told all of these people to go kick rocks, and after telling them to kick rocks, basically Rumble has been going on, and Rumble has been growing over time. Rumble has basically been growing as a result of them being a free speech platform. Now, there are caveats to free speech. I know that, yes, free speech may mean that you may have a lot of conspiracy theories, you may have a lot of racists on these platforms, but the whole thing is that, yes, they are going to get a right to say what they want to say, but that's all part of free speech, because free speech isn't about the speech you like, it's about the speech you don't like. And people having a right to say what they want on these forums, they have a right to say what they want on these forums, but the whole thing is that you have to have that free speech in order to protect the speech of others, because one of the worst things we could have is a group of oligarchs basically controlling the narrative regarding what people say on these platforms, because them controlling the narrative like they did from about 2017 to about now has basically stifled a lot of voices as related to these platforms. And all of that censorship basically, again, started with the gender wars as they started on social media. All that censorship started with black voices, and as it started with black voices, it has basically grown to become more and more people. It started with the black voices, then it further escalated to from going from censoring black men to censoring white men, to who are part of the Men Going Their Own Way movement as the Me Too movement went on, to looking to censor people who had conservative viewpoints, like guys like Paul Joseph Watson, to looking to go out here and censor people like Russell Brand, who spoke against the whole jab and other issues. And again, the censorship pool became more and more to the point where it got out of control. And many people basically say it was Elon Musk buying Twitter that basically started to push back on the censorship pool. And Elon Musk buying Twitter and basically making it a free speech platform opened the door for us to get free speech once more, and as related to these platforms, because YouTube and many of these companies had to start backing off. And this coinciding with the 2024 election of Donald Trump and this new head of the FCC may again indirectly benefit foundational black Americans and new black media, because new black media in this time of all of this censorship basically has been growing and could grow exponentially, and its influence could basically expand to, again, another level, because we've seen new black media basically go out here and is now the dominant media. This has been proven with the 2024 election, and basically so many black people staying home due to the growing political influence of new black media. And this could basically, again, change the platform, again, indirectly for black people, because this was about whites pushing back on the censorship that they saw going on as related to many of the groups that I mentioned winding up having their voices censored. But again, the root of it all started with black men, and now what they want to do is, again, push back as related to things. And again, this could benefit foundational black Americans, again, with the dismantling of what this Brendan Carr calls the censorship cartel, because now we can get a discourse where black men, again, can have a place to present their talking points and their voices freely, and we can get an expansion of ideas and start to get an expansion of ideas that could basically lead to the end of what they call the censorship cartel, and lead to black empowerment messages going to rise to a next level. That's what could happen here as related to things. Now, I know I'm being somewhat idealistic, but the whole thing is, this whole censorship has been going on for so long, and I've seen it happen over this internet over the last 4 or 5 years. And what I'll be glad to see, hopefully, come out of Brendan Carr basically taking over the FCC, could be us getting an internet that resembles something like the one from 2000 to 2009. And that internet basically was a place where people had the space to express themselves freely. They had the space to go out here and speak their minds on many platforms like GeoCities and Angel Fire, and people didn't just go out here and censor them, and people learned how to be more civil on the internet, be more civil to the point where they would go out here, and if they saw something they disagreed with, they just scrolled down like we did on the Wizard World message boards back in the day. That's what we used to do on message boards. We'd say, okay, if we don't like this content, what we're going to do is leave. And this could possibly wind up leading to things basically becoming a lot more civil, hopefully, as related to the internet. That's what I'm hoping as related to things, as related to this whole new FCC, that we start to see that the power goes back to the people, and we start to see, again, those different viewpoints. Now, a lot of people, again, are going to say, oh, this is going to lead to people like racists and stuff being able to say what they want. Well, again, the whole thing is that the internet has always had these people on these platforms, and they've always had these kind of guys like these conspiracy theorists. They basically are the foundation of the internet, the conspiracy theorists, and all these different people. They were the ones who knew how to code before learn to code was a phrase, and the whole thing is they had that right to, again, that freedom of expression. That's all part of America. And again, while there is some trade-offs as related to things, this will again indirectly be good for new black media, because new black media basically got its start on the internet, and with the whole censorship and community guidelines basically shattered as related to things, this could basically make it where many of the folks out here who are presenting black empowerment messages can again reach a larger audience, and a larger audience as related to going out here and being able to reach that larger audience. That's what this whole guy being the new head of the FCC could mean indirectly for black people. And it could be that because, again, we've had so much censorship over the internet with black content creators, we've never really got to hear that diversity of voices that we really should have. I mean, we really don't get to get that diversity of thought, and that's something that I hope comes out of this new guy running the FCC, and I'm hoping that it leads to many more voices being able to have that freedom to go out here and speak out like they want. Now, if you want to check out some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find the books of the SJS Direct universe, like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my black sorority novel, The Thetas, or my vampire novel, Eternal Night. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, is available on Lulu right now, and you can pick up a paper copy over there for the same price as the 2022 Kickstarter. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about the media, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support black-owned and black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.